Mizuki is a lonely girl drooling over a guy obsessed with 2D characters and otaku culture. Despite her efforts to rizz him, Subaru stays strong and continue his journey of becoming the cultured man of all time. In the art club room, Mizuki peeked like a creep at what Subaru Uchimaki is drawing. As always, it's the weird ultimate waifu obsession. Mizuki slurs weirdly, showing disgust while Subaru calls her out for being rude. Like a snob, Subaru introduces the painting girl as his 17th waifu. Dude has no interest in 3D girls. Mizuki slams her foot, being the loser that she is, while Subaru asks why she is bothered by his taste. Mizuki blabbers some BS about otaku drawings and to hide her embarrassment smacks the painting. Subaru shoots up at her in shock as she covers her blunder, pointing out his wastage of talent. At that exact moment, their lazy senior, who's the club president, wakes up and calls them losers for disturbing his sleep. Mizuki yells at him regarding his slackness. He then gets up and walks out the door. Suddenly, teacher Koyama enters and asks them to be nice to each other and work hard as if he's a robot. After a while, Mizuki tries to concentrate, but the voices around her start to annoy her. She asks Subaru to take his shit somewhere else. Just then, Subaru asks her why she keeps drawing these boring apples, but Mizuki taunts him that he should say sorry to Paul says. Ignoring her annoyance, he bluntly asks if she loves apples, but she is too stunned to answer his dumb question. Mizuki gets curious when he suggests adopting human attributes to an object trick. In the evening, Subaru looks around waiting. Eventually, he complains how Colette is running late today. He then asks Mizuki if she'd model for him. Dumbfounded, Mizuki tells him that he is always altering his models. She recalls the last time he asked her to model and drew her entirely different from her looks. With that, Mizuki asks to make the president model for him, to which he replies that the president posing in a cute way feels cringe. This fuels Mizuki's delusions and she agrees to model. Mizuki poses and Subaru points out he can see her underworld, causing Mizuki to almost die from embarrassment. Without any delay, she puts on gym shorts. The president guy shoots up from behind the sofa while Mizuki yells, asking how long he's been lurking there. He restates the whole incident, adding more to her embarrassment. Mizuki shouts as he walks out casually. Later, Subaru presents the drawing to Mizuki. After looking at the canvas, she throws a punch, but Subaru stops it with lightning speed. Mizuki screams about the resemblance. He leans forward and points out that the drawing has identical undies as hers. She wonders in shock how he noticed it. He simply shows the picture the president sent while Mizuki panics and starts to cry. Afterwards, Mizuki finds the president and runs after him with a baseball bat in hand to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, Subaru starts drawing Mizuki again, but the president interrupts, telling him to leave as he's closing the club room. Subaru gets up, hands over the sketch to Mizuki, and walks off. Mizuki looks at it and blushes. The following day, Subaru catches Mizuki's attention to ask her out. She screams internally but eventually agrees. Subaru then proudly reveals his new ultimate waifu sketch, pointing out that it features Mizuki's cute face. The next morning, Mizuki enters the club while Subaru mentions that he's going to quit after completing his drawing. Mizuki stares at him blankly, and he smiles, joking about inviting her to his wedding. Mizuki gets tired of this crap and gets angry. She moves forward and physically shakes him, throwing him at the president just to hide her embarrassment. Later on the roof, the president says they can't stop Subaru from quitting. Mizuki points out that Colette rarely comes to the club and she doesn't want to be stuck with him alone again. The following afternoon, Subaru is leaving since he can't concentrate. Mizuki is strolling down the hallway thinking about herself and Subaru. She ponders she never had a chance with him, recalling the time when Subaru came for the audition of the art club. His purpose for joining the art club was to draw his ultimate 2D waifu. She approached him to shake hands since they were in the same year, but he bluntly embarrassed her by refusing to do so. As they walk home together, there's an awkward silence between them. Mizuki breaks it by asking Subaru if he's serious about quitting. He responds with a joke, asking if she'll miss him if he leaves. Mizuki almost replies, but Subaru starts laughing. Feeling embarrassed, Mizuki quickly runs off. During the night bath, Mizuki recollects the day's events and cringes at herself. The next day, Mizuki fixes her hair and enters the room to find Subaru alone. She internally curses the disgusting president for not being available when it matters. She then asks Subaru about the painting, to which he points towards the wall. Subaru then admits he's not quitting because of something that happened, hinting it's because of her. Mizuki is taken aback while he explains her tears yesterday made him reconsider. Trying to lighten the mood, Mizuki jokes about drawing a crying girl, but Subaru, being the alpha male, ends up taking it seriously. The following morning, Mizuki is walking down the hallway with her group when Sayaka starts talking about some fake horoscope shit. Meanwhile, in the art room, Subaru ends up spilling red paint all over the floor. The president asks to clean it up quickly before Mizuki comes yelling at them like a lunatic. However, his foot accidentally hits the chair and Mizuki's art piece falls face down on the paint. Both of them stare at it in complete horror. They both try to come up with ideas to get out of this blunder when they overhear Mizuki coming toward them. Subaru tells the president guy to cover it while he runs out to buy some time. Outside the door, Mizuki senses his suspicious behavior and, as usual, hits him with a backpack. She opens the door to find the president lying on the floor like a victim. With that, Subaru plays along with the president's fantasy prank. Mizuki gives him a stare and announces she's too busy with the art competition deadline, so she can't be bothered by their stupid pranks. This statement literally sucks the soul out of both of them. Mizuki then scans the room, searching for the drawing. Meanwhile, Subaru distracts her by pointing at the shelf. As she looks for the canvas, Subaru and the president engage in conversation. Subaru brings up Mizuki's undies again, causing her to fall, but fortunately he catches her in time. She thinks about the silly thing Sayaka said and tries to kiss, but he drops her. At this moment, the president blurts out about her painting. Mizuki, still like a stone, asks to repeat himself in a scary way. With a burst of frustration, she punches them with force. Since her painting is ruined, they decide to submit Subaru's silly waifu painting to prevent the closure of the art club. To their surprise, Subaru's painting ends up securing second place on display. At the sleepover, Mizuki's friend asks her about the obsession with Subaru. She recalls last November when Subaru used up all the paint and they both went to buy new paint. Subaru got angry with her for buying so much stuff as it was hard to carry. However, she shut him up with "You're a guy" remark. A woman came up to them worried, asking them about a little girl as she described her appearance. They decided to help her and started looking. After a while, they found the missing girl standing with another strange girl wearing a mask. They approached and told her about her mommy in a suspicious manner. She hesitantly walked toward them when the girl in the mask finally spoke, scaring the little girl, who ran back to hide behind her. Mizuki and Subaru tried to console her as the masked girl ran away. Subaru came to the rescue by drawing something and showing it to the little girl. Eventually, she calmed down and decided to come with them. Mizuki snaps back to her friend, who has already passed out, and changes sides. She says goodnight to Subaru like he would hear it and sleeps. The next morning, Mizuki gets the news of a love letter Subaru found in the shoebox earlier. While telling her about it, the president puts up both hands on his face, cringing at Subaru's popular normie life. Mizuki slams the painting on the president's head when he tries pointing out that she might like Subaru too. Subaru surprises Mizuki by asking if she's ever written a love letter. Mizuki is taken aback but manages to mumble that she might write one for him someday, not realizing she said it out loud. Mizuki swiftly changes the subject, asking Subaru what he plans to do about the letter. Subaru casually replies that he'll just turn her down. During the afternoon, Subaru meets the love letter girl while Mizuki and the president hide behind the bushes since they don't trust him one bit. Subaru informs the girl that he likes someone else. She asks if it is Mizuki since they're always together, but he nods in a defying manner and Mizuki gets sad. After school, both are walking when Subaru suddenly stops and says some crap after seeing a little girl. Mizuki recalls the talk between her and the president discussing Subaru's creep thinking. It's only after the girl has passed that Mizuki realizes he was referring to the keychain doll strap on the girl's back. The little girl enters her house and tells her sister about a creepy guy staring at her, to which she decides to call the police. Turns out, the little girl is the sister of the girl Subaru rejected earlier. On another day, Subaru finds the art room to himself, but only for a second until he notices some noises from behind the sofa. It's Colette, the lonely first-year exchange student with a mysterious past. She then gets up and tells him about the lost locket. Colette shares with Subaru about the precious picture inside the locket, and Subaru assumes it's a photo of her family. Realizing the importance, Subaru offers to assist her. Colette, overjoyed, expresses her gratitude and thanks him. As they're walking down the hallway to the lost and found section, Colette gets distracted by a million things. In the box, she finds Mizuki's hairpin and jokes about her clumsiness. She then goes through her day's activities to find some clues, only to remember she lost it yesterday. Subaru gives her a stare as Mizuki walks up to them. Colette gives Mizuki the hairpin and shares the story of the locket. Feeling sorry, Mizuki apologizes and offers her the president's bead bracelet. As they head back to the art room, Colette thinks it's a nice exchange. She hopes the president will give her the locket, just as Mizuki gave her the bracelet. With that, she hands the bracelet to Subaru. Colette eagerly asks for the locket, but the president seems confused. She starts acting strangely, accusing them both until she suddenly freezes. The president suggests she check her pockets. Trying to save face, she pretends to do a magic trick. Surprisingly, the locket was in her pocket all along. She slumps down, crying while Subaru consoles her, saying it's good she found it. It turns out, instead of a family picture, there's a sticker photo of Colette inside the locket. Colette is throwing a tantrum as everyone is late and gets distracted by her shoe and ends up getting hit by it. Subaru comes and Mizuki also rushes into the room. She looks at the sofa and inquires if the president is sick. He, standing beside her, notifies it's Subaru. Apparently, Subaru is out of ideas on hairstyles for the waifu painting. Mizuki suggests a short bob in a sticky way. Colette jumps in and interrupts her. The next morning, Mizuki gives Subaru a hairstyle magazine for reference and he thanks her happily. After class, Kaori asks Mizuki to hang out. She refuses because some club work needed to be done. Kaori and others start getting upset. Sayaka asks her a trick question and a witty response leaves Mizuki's mouth about Subaru. All of them decide to join her for the club today. Mizuki objects, but they wave her off. In the club room, everyone decides to draw with Mizuki and Subaru as models. Kaori, being a creep, makes them touch their shoulders. Mizuki feels awkward when she first arrives at the club room, unsure why she's there. But after a while, she starts to feel more comfortable. Turns out, Kaori's drawing is terrible, so they send her to buy drinks. She looks sad as she hands Subaru a cola. Mizuki steps in, saying he doesn't like fizzy drinks. Kaori jokes about swapping, but Mizuki panics, worried about an indirect kiss. To prevent it, she quickly drinks Kaori's drink. In return, Subaru drinks hers, making Mizuki's heart race. The next day at school, Kaori posts an inappropriate article with pictures of Mizuki and Subaru causing trouble. Mizuki decides to kill her as soon as she sees the article. Miss Yumiko is looking at the art club students' profiles as Mr. Koyama enters the room and wishes her good luck with the day as the new art club supervisor. Miss Yumiko blushes and thanks him. Miss Yumiko is standing nervously outside the club door when Colette comes rolling down and hits her feet. She then introduces herself as the new advisor to the club, which initially makes Colette happy, but then she suddenly stops. Her weird brain cells make thoughts completely absurd about Miss Yumiko and runs away. She opens the door and finds Mizuki and Subaru already peeking at her. She gets nervous and starts to give the intro when Mizuki does it for her. She feels a little comfortable after her remark, but the president, being the total klutz, blurts out, making Miss Yumiko edgy again. Miss Yumiko follows Mr. Koyama's instructions and sits quietly, observing the students working silently. She sees the president, who's dozing off again, and labels him a bit of a delinquent. Subaru appears to be a nice, talented guy, but then he unveils a massive figure of one of his anime crushes. That sight makes Miss Yumiko realize Subaru's just another hormone-driven kid. Overwhelmed, she dashes out. Mizuki and Subaru wake the president to help them bring her back. Obviously, they made him go against his will with force. Then, they made him engage her in a conversation to keep her occupied so both of them could finish up the surprise drawing. The president yaps something about naps and the weather and keeps on yapping until time passes by. After being done with their work, Mizuki and Subaru show Miss Yumiko the drawings. She's stunned by what they had drawn. Mizuki is focusing on reality while Subaru's waifu obsession didn't leave the chat or the drawing for that matter. Tears fill Miss Yumiko's eyes as she realizes Mr. Koyama was part of the surprise to make her feel welcome. On the other hand, Colette takes a peaceful breath as she confirms Miss Yumiko as a teacher. One afternoon, Colette is hiding in the shade, watching a man walking by. The little girl asks her what she's doing, and Colette replies that she's praying for the man walking in the sun. She warns the girl to stay in the shade and then runs away. Later, it's revealed that the little girl is the same one whom Mizuki and Subaru rescued, and her mother comes to take her away. At night, Mizuki is lying in bed, feeling tired after her bath. She almost drifts off to sleep, thinking about Subaru. Suddenly, her mother enters the room and wakes her up gently. Mizuki asks what time it is and realizes she still hasn't finished her homework. Rushing to complete it, she turns to her mother and asks why she's there. Her mother says that Subaru is calling. Mizuki quickly grabs the phone and answers it. After the greetings, she forces her mother out and talks to him. Subaru then reveals about swapping of her homework printout sheets. He says he'll be there shortly to give her the sheets and cut the call while Mizuki cries in panic. Mizuki's mother calls as she walks in the hallway. She eyes the outfit Mizuki is wearing, making her anxious. At that moment, the bell rings and Mizuki jumps in confusion, but her mother assures her that she's not looking weird. Mizuki opens the door and greets Subaru while her mother staring hard at both of them. She takes Subaru outside to talk to him. He gives her the sheets and all of a sudden Mizuki finally gets the courage to ask for his phone number, but being the riskless person she makes it really awkward. Subaru finally gives Mizuki his number and leaves. Mizuki returns to her room, holding her phone tightly, and dances with joy for a while. The morning ahead, Mizuki and Subaru are drawing a sketch of the head art piece in the club room while Colette keeps up with her crazy acts. She looks at Mizuki's canvas, first admiring her work, but being her true self she does throw a very Colette remark. Subaru smirks and says he never draws something exactly like the reference and of course drew the art piece as his waifu. However, Mizuki and Colette give him a side eye. After a while, Subaru asks Mizuki if she needs anything as he leaves to buy some painting supplies. Mizuki jumps to grab the opportunity to spend more time with him and offers to help out. He asks Colette if she'd like to come, but she winks at Mizuki and declines. Colette sits alone, staring at the dull art piece. Suddenly, an idea hits her, and she decides to paint it a solid tan color. She admires her work but realizes she might get in trouble. Quickly, she hides the painted piece in a box and leaves the room. Later, Miss Yumiko enters the room and notices some manga on the floor. Curious, she bends down to look closer and spots a box. Upon opening it, she screams and ends up fainting. After a while, Mizuki and Subaru come back and see Miss Yumiko passed out on the floor. With that, Mizuki runs back to get some help while Subaru flips through some manga for help. He forgets the moment and gets lost in the story until he snaps back. He discovers the CPR technique, which haunts him more than dealing with real girls. Just as he's about to attempt it, the president walks in, catching him off guard and causing him to quickly retreat. Colette approaches and he grabs her hand, fleeing the scene. Later, they share their perspectives, but neither understands the other's viewpoint. Mizuki brings in Mr. Koyama for assistance. Together, they all rush back to find Miss Yumiko awake, and they collectively breathe a sigh of relief. Miss Yumiko tells them that she thought there was a human head in the box and passed out her senses. Upon checking, they find it to be the painted art piece. Suddenly, Colette starts moping on the floor. The president gets impatient while waiting for Subaru. Mizuki takes the phone out to dial him as he enters. Subaru looks like he hasn't been sleeping. The president performs a dumb magic ritual on Colette while Mizuki and Subaru sit being the audience. Colette and the president keep up with their crazy acts while Miss Yumiko comes and announces the daily plan for the art club. Everyone gets excited thinking it would be something new and fun, but their face darken more than coal as they realize they're on pool cleaning duty. Everybody changes into their swimsuits and move towards the swimming pool area. Subaru, being in a bad mood, thinks about how he could be doing something more fun. Colette tries to cheer them up but in vain. She makes a remark about Mizuki being into Subaru while Mizuki yells and starts running after her. Colette sits in peace after getting a good dose from Mizuki. At this moment, the president comes up and tells them they're going to make the pool cleaning fun. He brought paint and told them to paint as much as they want and clean it up afterwards. This changes their whole moods and they start working up. Meanwhile, Miss Yumiko is having trouble fitting her big talents into the swimsuit. On the pool area, the three of them do as much fun as they possibly can while the president, as usual, passes out. Bro only wakes up occasionally. They draw a really pretty painting of a mermaid along with a dolphin and take a lot of pictures with it. The president signals to start cleaning now as less time is left. However, Miss Yumiko is still nowhere near to be seen as she is still stuck with her fitting problem. Subaru feels down while cleaning, so Mizuki asks him what's wrong. He explains that the paint isn't coming off, and when Mizuki tries, she finds out it's permanent. The president admits that he didn't pay attention while buying the paint, showing no shame. Meanwhile, Miss Yumiko arrives at the pool in a cute green swimsuit, hoping the kids have done a good job. Later, Mizuki talks to Subaru on the phone. He's discussing a manga series, but when Mizuki doesn't get a reference and teases him about it, Subaru feels a bit offended but brushes it off. Mizuki's mother then calls her downstairs, and they say goodbye to each other. The following morning, Mizuki wakes up in a really good mood. She does everything happily and in a calm manner while her mother is shocked to core at her behavior. As she reaches the bus stop, Ryoko and Sayaka meet her there. In the classroom, Kaori comes to Mizuki and warns to take care of herself as they ranked her star the lowest. Mizuki smiles and reassures her not to worry, mentioning that the TV show she watched ranked it as the highest. Kaori still advises her to be on guard, mentioning the new student transferring into Subaru's class. According to rumors, she's really pretty, charming, and quite witty. Mizuki assures her that there won't be any problem, not as long as it involves Subaru, since he just drools over 2D drawing wafers. As the teacher enters the class, everyone rises to attention. The new girl, Emery Maria, introduces herself, prompting every guy in the class to stare at her with desperate eyes. Meanwhile, Subaru wonders what all the fuss is about with 3D people. The teacher assigns Emery the seat next to Subaru. She notices his awkward position and asks if he's okay, leaving behind a manga reference before taking her seat. Subaru ponders whether he heard her correctly or not. During the break, Kaori approaches Mizuki again, asking if she's not interested in finding out about the new girl. Mizuki responds with a casual note, stating that she has nothing to worry about because it's Subaru they're talking about. On the other side, Emery got shy being surrounded by so many people. She asks Subaru to sit outside. As they walk outside, he asks why she picked him out of all the students. She chuckles softly and explains that she felt a vibe match. Pointing at his hoodie, she mentions a manga reference. This leads to a casual conversation about manga, as they share their thoughts and favorite series. Mizuki asks Subaru's classmate about his whereabouts and goes outside only to see Subaru and Emery shaking hands and recalls the time when he bluntly rejected her hand. Later, Mizuki is in trauma when the president tries to say something, but she gives him a death stare enough to silence him for forever. Subaru approaches and inquires why she visited his class earlier. Instead of answering, she smacks a pillow right in his face, teasingly calling him an idiot. In retaliation, he does the same, starting a playful cat and mouse game that continues until they both come back to their senses. Later, Mizuki asks him if he would like to go out with her to replace the broken strap of the bag, to which Subaru agrees. She smiles at the idea of them hanging out. As they're leaving, they spot Emery standing next to the shoe lockers. Subaru introduces Mizuki to Emery, and they exchange greetings. The three of them then leave together, with Emery asking Subaru to show her the bookstore. Mizuki feels disappointed by this turn of events. At the store, Emery asks if they're both dating as they seem close to each other. Mizuki blushes and over-explains with her usual crap, while Subaru casually says it's nothing like that. Emery then teases Mizuki about going out with Subaru herself. Coming back from the store, they find a little kid crying since his balloon was stuck in the tree. Subaru tries to catch it, but it was too high for him. He asks Mizuki to sit on his shoulders and catch it. At first she refuses, but when he asks Emery to do so, she agrees. However, the two of them fail to catch it. After a while, Emery says she can do it by jumping and catches it without breaking a sweat. Girl seemed like a pro athlete. After seeing the happiness on the kid's face, Mizuki thinks she can get along with her. The next day, Mizuki finds Emery and Subaru deeply focused into the manga and reconsiders her thought of getting along with Emery as Kaori compliments her new strap. One day at school, Miss Yumiko calls both Mizuki and Subaru and talks to them about the 14th art competition of the school. She informs about the deadline and how she will be cheering for them from around the corner. Walking down the hallway, Mizuki counts the days left till the competition deadline while talking about the strategy they are going to use as a team. She smiles at Subaru and instructs him to work hard. Subaru, being totally uninterested in her speech, tells he's not going to participate in the competition this time. She points out that he was fine doing it the last spring, but he counters that it was only because the art piece was ruined and he doesn't want anyone to see his wafers. Mizuki tries to manipulate him, but the dude is so unbothered by it. Mizuki awes at his coolness and says she'll do it herself. Subaru instructs her to be committed and she shushes him as another dude walks by. He stops after hearing something around the word prize. He turns around, tilting his head, and asks if they're in the art club. They both wonder who he is as neither of them knows him. This other dude directs a question at Subaru regarding the painting he submitted to the competition last time. He goes on to make fun of his painting, calling it an ugly piece of garbage. This angers Mizuki more than Subaru, who's just chilling standing there. Mizuki tells this guy to shut up and go rot somewhere. He fuels her and suggests they have their own contest during the competition, to which Mizuki agrees. He makes fun of them again and advises them not to bring those ugly paintings. She flares her nostrils while Subaru just stands there like a mute with his mouth slightly open. In the club room, Mizuki takes out her anger on the president's dove mask, stretching that sorry thing. The president sweats but doesn't say much since Mizuki scares him. Subaru stands there completely unbothered and restates the whole incident to the president. Subaru didn't even get to ask his name while he trashed all his work. In her fury, Mizuki tries to put some sense into his dumb brain and decides that they'll beat him up with Subaru's painting. However, he objects to her authority but stops as he notices that she is sad and agrees. The next day, Mizuki is running late for the club as she loses track of time while shopping. On her way to the club, she hears something weird from the staff room and checks up only to find Miss Yumiko. She enters the room and finds Subaru already there, working on the painting. He had already drawn the rough sketch. Seeing his uniform wrinkled on the sofa, she hangs it up while Subaru thanks her in a mom way. She quickly shows the offense, but he jokes how at this age she would be his wife. Fueling her dumb fantasies, Mizuki succumbs to it and starts imagining married life with Subaru. Subaru then asks her if she brought the reference dress he asked for. She takes it out and hangs it up. Glancing at the canvas, she questions why he's drawn her underworld, to which he responds by asking if she's wearing any with a dead straight face. He then asks her to put on the dress so he can capture its wrinkles and creases accurately. After she puts it on, she sits still as Subaru works on the painting. Lost in her thoughts, Mizuki is startled when Subaru mentions he can see her underworld again. Over the course of the next few days, Mizuki and Subaru work on the painting with all their heart while everyone else cheers up for them. Eventually, they forget about that dude who challenged them in the first place. Ultimately, Subaru's painting secures first place on the display and both of them are beyond happy. One day, Colette is sitting with a worried expression on her face as she stares at the paper at the table. The president asks what she is doing. She tries to hide her expression by covering the paper with her hands. The president sees that it's a career counseling survey. Colette has written that she wants to be a hero of justice. The president tells her to fill out the rest of the form as Mizuki walks in. Colette gets happy at seeing her and Mizuki smiles. The president then asks Mizuki to help Colette in filling out the form. The president then asks Mizuki in a joking manner what she put in her survey. Mizuki panics and diverts the question to something else. However, President, being a stubborn prick, keeps on pushing her. Colette joins him in this act while Mizuki stutters the word wife embarrassingly. They both burst out laughing while Mizuki tries to explain herself without any success. This makes her angry and she says some harsh things to Colette regarding her hero of justice answer. She further adds that there is no such thing in real life and it only exists in mangas. As soon as she realizes what she has done, all three of them fall silent as Colette starts tearing up. Mizuki starts to apologize to her, but Colette calls her dense and runs away while crying. Mizuki tries to stop her, but in vain. Even the president gives her a side eye. Subaru hears Colette as she runs by him. He enters the room and asks why Colette was being mean to her and the reason she ran away crying. Mizuki stays silent due to embarrassment. As the loudmouth president starts to say something, Mizuki slaps the poor guy into silence. Colette goes to the rooftop and finds Emery there. She's mumbling something to herself while standing in front of the setting sun. Colette isn't able to figure out what she's saying, so interrupts her and asks what she is doing. Emery silences her that she is distracting her from the ritual and it can cause her death. Colette is shocked but follows her. After Emery finishes speaking, she explains that she's saving the school from a dangerous evil void that commoner school kids cannot see by sacrificing herself. Colette is impressed and asks if she can call Emery her master. She begs Emery to allow her while spilling that she wants to be a hero of justice and tells her the remark Mizuki made earlier. Emery asks to make up with Mizuki and she'll allow it. Colette immediately nods and goes to make up with Mizuki, to which Emery smiles. The next day, Subaru finds Colette in a weird shape with a strange bandage wrapped around her eye and one of her hands. Colette tells it's a costume her master tied on her. She tells about the black dragon in her eye and Mizuki approaches with snacks in hand for all of them. Colette then jumps with excitement. On the roof, Emery in her fantasy world thanks the universe for sending her a companion to save the world. Sunlight falls through the window as everyone works on their stuff in the art room. Subaru is working on his drawing while Colette is listening to music and drawing. The president, as usual, is passed out on the sofa. Mizuki sketches the plaster figure but is having a hard time concentrating. The figure creeps her out since Colette painted it into a very tan guy with a weird long mustache. Mizuki cries out and Subaru comes asking what the matter is. She points out the figure and explains the problem. Both of them approach the passed-out president, and Mizuki asks to buy a new figure with the club funds. He replies half asleep that he bought a new pillow with this month's funds. She double-checks that she heard right by asking him again while President snores in reply. Mizuki looks to her left and sees Subaru holding a small girl figurine. He quickly tries to hide it, saying he won't let her borrow his honey as a model, while Mizuki looks at him with a disappointed expression. To add to more amusement, Colette comments how these boys are the biggest troublemakers. Mizuki, already on fire, pinches her cheek, saying it's all her fault in the first place. The president tells Mizuki that they might have a spare figure in the storage room next door. Meanwhile, Colette saves herself and hugs Subaru, complaining about Mizuki being. The president suspects that Miss Yumiko might not have the key, to which Subaru suggests they ask Mr. Koyama. Mizuki says it's a good idea and turns to only find Colette hugging Subaru. Mr. Koyama hands over the keys to Subaru and he thanks him. Subaru puts the key inside the lock and clicks. He then opens the door, but due to being closed for a long time it is rusty and isn't budging. Subaru puts all his force to use and manages to open the door. He sits down to take a sigh and to appear more manly he says it was easy with ragged breathing. However, Mizuki looks down and points to his breathing while calling him a pathetic loser. Upon entering the storage room, Mizuki looks around at all the dusty things. She comments on the size of the room and grunts because they cannot open the window as it is blocked by storage boxes. Subaru tries to turn on the light, but it is dead and won't turn on. Mizuki suggests they find the damn thing and get out quickly. Both of them start looking for it. Mizuki sees a flower sketch and goes wild loudly. Subaru scolds her, reminding her to stay focused. Mizuki apologizes for getting distracted. However, at the same time, Subaru finds an old manga he used to read in elementary school and starts reading it while Mizuki judges his hypocrisy. The president comes to check up on them and asks if they found it. Instead of looking at them searching for it, he finds them sitting on the ground. Mizuki informs that they're taking a short break. Uninterested in them, he tells them he's going home and they should lock both rooms after finding the piece. He then closes the door, which turns out to be pretty hard. Subaru gives Mizuki a look, and she teases him about his expression. Mizuki tries to open the door but finds it difficult. She struggles silently and then apologizes to Subaru for mocking him earlier. After that, Subaru attempts to open the door but finds it even harder than before. He tries repeatedly, but the door remains stuck. Both of them start to panic and frantically try to open it. Exhausted, they lie on the floor to catch their breath. Mizuki stiffens when she realizes how close Subaru is. She feels his breath on her face and blushes as their eyes meet. They hear Colette outside the door and quickly get up. They shout, hoping she might open it. But Colette, wearing headphones and listening to music, doesn't hear a word they say. She starts to walk home, thinking that both of her seniors have already left. Suddenly, after Colette leaves, Subaru asks Mizuki if she has her phone, but she tells it's in her bag with a sad face. She says that everyone must be gone home by now and asks Subaru what if no one notices them. He replies that the worst thing to happen is that they'll have to spend the night here. It gets cold as the time passes by. Mizuki worries about what they will do if it gets more cold, but Subaru hugs her from behind to give some of his warmth. Subaru looks out from the window as it gets dark. He turns and finds Mizuki sitting in a corner like a mentally ill patient. He inquires what's the matter. Mizuki, being the dumbass, thinks about things way too far from the reality regarding her and Subaru. Subaru is concerned about her state and asks what's wrong with her. She keeps kicking her legs and calling herself stupid. He asks her to stop it because she's throwing the dust at him. She sits up and tells what's worrying her. As she recalls the fantasy, Subaru says that they're not alone. He takes out his girl figurine, to which Mizuki bursts out laughing. He shows her the qualities of his figurine and quite proudly switches a button that emits light from her eyes. Mizuki tells him it's the first time his figures impressed her, leaving Subaru offended. Suddenly, an idea clicks in Mizuki's mind. She uses the doll figurine and signals an SOS message. She tells Subaru that the teacher on patrol at the school will see it and come to rescue them. To their luck, Miss Yumiko is the one patrolling the school. She's walking scared around the hallways as she sees the blinking light and moves towards it in fear. The next moment, Mizuki blinks the light. Miss Yumiko sees the doll's figure light emitting eyes and passes out from fear. Inside the room, both of them hear a thud sound and start shouting, but no one comes to help. Disappointed, Subaru starts checking around the room and finds a picture of the old art club members. He makes a joke about ghosts, and Mizuki warns him that she'll break his precious doll if he says something sus again. Subaru notices something in the picture and shows it to Mizuki, a door. They quickly find it and push through, leading them back to the club room. Mizuki takes a deep breath, grateful that they got out. Otherwise, she knows she'd get teased a lot if they had to spend the night in the storage room together. She doesn't realize she said it out loud until Subaru asks. Mizuki waves it off. Mizuki finds her phone and sees her mom called her 1,000,000 times. The next morning, the president looks at the figure painted as a clown amusingly. Colette comes and names the figures as Mizuki curses people who ruin art pieces. Mizuki is doing her homework when Emery and Subaru's voices coming from the secret room they found yesterday piss her off. She goes to them and instructs them to speak slowly. In fact, she didn't even want them in the same room together. It makes her jealous, but she doesn't say it out loud. Now that they're quiet, it raises suspicion in Mizuki and she asks them why are they so quiet. Subaru asks her irritatingly to make up her mind. As they argue, Emery finds an envelope in the manga she's holding. She lets them know, and Mizuki reads its contents out loud. It's a riddle for a treasure hunt left by former members of the art club. Subaru asks Emery to help him out with it as Mizuki is doing her homework. This makes her furious and she announces her break time and that she's free to go on this hunt. All three of them walk out of the hallway as Mizuki reads the codes. Code number 1 states to find a place called the Little Room for Gentlemen. Emery figures out it means the boys' toilet. Code 2 states to find the word ko from the window of the room. Subaru looks down the window and figures out the word ko means katana, the tiles of the floor outside. He hurries outside to tell the girls. They go outside and Mizuki checks the next code. It states to find the alphabet around it. Emery tilts her head and finds the letter U on the floor. She feels proud of her riddle-solving speed while Subaru compliments her. Mizuki reads the next code and immediately figures out the answer. Emery stops her from telling it as she wants to guess it. After she couldn't, Mizuki gives her a hint. She says it's related to Van Gogh, but Emery can't figure it out. Mizuki doesn't blame her as she's not an art club member, so she asks Subaru to tell her but doesn't know as well. With that, Mizuki herself tells them about Van Gogh. She says the answer is the number of paintings he made, which is 7. Mizuki steps 7 steps ahead and asks Subaru to dig there. Emery takes out a handy shovel and starts digging. They retrieve the box and decide that whatever they find, they'll distribute it equally between the three of them. Emery feels good because they consider her as one of their own. Mizuki takes the lid off the box, only to close it again in a split second. Turns out, the box contains a women's magazine. The next day, Subaru and Mizuki seem preoccupied, and the president notices and asks what's the matter, but they both wave off the question. Later, Emery is looking for a grim and evil book called the Grimoire. She tells Colette about it and reveals the news that it is here somewhere around on the school grounds. Colette looks up at her face and gasps. After a moment, Emery asks if she knows what it is. Colette hesitates and makes an uncertain expression. indicating she's not entirely sure. Trying to please Emery, she agrees, even though she's unsure of the answer. At that moment, Miss Yumiko walks toward them. Colette sees and runs off to hug her. Miss Yumiko smiles and asks what they're doing. Colette tells her all the matter. Miss Yumiko regards Emery and Colette and nods in agreement to help them find it. In the club room, the president talks to Subaru in a whispering manner. With a very odd demeanor, he assures him that whatever they'll talk about won't be heard by another soul. He asks Subaru to talk man to man without any limit. Subaru gets scared and tries to leave the room. The president defends himself and says he got the wrong idea and he's not discussing anything sus with him. He further proceeds to say he meant the book they found yesterday. Subaru takes a breath of peace and asks him what he wants to inquire about that book. He says that they need to get rid of it before a teacher finds out, as it can get them in a lot of trouble. The president decides that he'll take responsibility and dispose of the book. Subaru questions how he'll do it, to which the president suggests taking it home. Subaru responds with a sarcastic hell, accusing the president of merely wanting to take it home and calling him out for being a creep. Subaru says he'll get rid of it as he's not interested in 3D girls. The president is reluctant to give it to him. Both of them are engaged in a hand-to-hand struggle when Mizuki enters the room, taken aback by the scene. Startled, they quickly try to explain that it's not what it seems. Mizuki remains silent, observing. After they apologize, they confess the whole incident to her. The trio then ponders how to dispose of the book. As they wonder what to do next, they suddenly hear Miss Yumiko's voice approaching down the hallway. Panic sets in, and they quickly try to regain their composure. Miss Yumiko slides open the door and steps into the room, finding only Mizuki and Subaru inside. She looks around, searching for the president, who remains hidden behind a corner. The president speaks up, explaining that he's occupied with some work. He sweeps the sweat off his face and looks at the magazine in his hands, calling it a close call. Miss Yumiko shares details about the incident involving Colette and mentions the book they're searching for. She struggles to recall its name, uttering a name similar to the magazine title, Mizuki Subaru, and the president panic internally, realizing the potential trouble they're in. Miss Yumiko starts walking towards the storage room, saying it has a lot of books, so it might be there. The president quickly slides the book through the outer door and saves everyone. Subaru and Mizuki get it, and Subaru hides it under his shirt. They both start running as if their lives depend on it. While walking, Kaori tells Ryoko about the precious yo-yo as she sees Mizuki and Subaru running towards them. She shows Mizuki her yo-yo, but she ignores it and runs away, leaving Kaori offended. Kaori's journalist brain starts working and weaves out a story about two lovers finally doing the deed. With that, she tries to run after them, but Yorika stops her. Another teacher scolds them for running in the hallway, to which they slow down, but as soon as the teacher disappears, they start running again. They stop around the shoe locker to catch their breath and talk about what they're going to do with it. At that moment, Colette sees them and starts walking toward them. Colette notices something in Subaru's stomach area and starts feeling his shirt, convinced it's the evil book they've been searching for. Mizuki and Subaru panic, but Colette remains determined. Emery joins the scene, cheering Colette on, but Mizuki clarifies it's just a magazine. Despite Emery's efforts to intervene, Colette manages to snatch the magazine from Subaru. Subaru, Mizuki, and Emery stand dejectedly as Colette examines the magazine in her hand. Miss Yumiko arrives and sees what Colette is holding. Colette points the blame at Subaru, prompting Miss Yumiko to summon him to the staff room. Subaru hesitates, but Miss Yumiko's authority leaves him no choice. Meanwhile, Emery and Mizuki can't contain their laughter at the situation. Later on, the president hears about Subaru's encounter with Miss Yumiko and wishes he could have taken the punishment instead. While strolling down the hallway, Subaru encounters the guy who challenged him at the art competition. He starts bragging about his skills, but Subaru is clueless about who he is. Despite winning first prize, Subaru has no recollection of him. The challenger proposes another art duel, to which Subaru initially refuses. However, after relentless begging from the challenger, Subaru reluctantly agrees to the rematch, much to his own surprise. As always, they ask Mizuki to model for them, to which she agrees. Subaru requests a cute pose, but upon seeing it, he bursts into laughter, claiming it doesn't suit her. Mizuki encourages the other guy, expressing her confidence in his abilities. This causes him to blush like a girl. Mizuki sets the timer, and both artists begin sketching. When time's up, Mizuki calls for a halt. Subaru insists he drew Mizuki exactly as she appeared, but Mizuki remains skeptical, and as usual, she's proven right. Upon asking about the similarity, Subaru pouts and points at the undies, but Mizuki tells him she's not wearing these today. She then looks at the other guy's painting, which is incomplete. Mizuki asks why he didn't draw anything, but he is unable to answer and runs away. Later, the president is lying on the bench enjoying the spring breeze. Suddenly, the president sees a little girl named Mocha standing behind him. He asks her who she is, and she introduces herself. When he inquires where she came from, she points in a direction. He asks Mocha about her parents, and she mentions her dad isn't around. This makes him feel sympathetic, thinking her dad might have left them. He assumes her grandfather to be a teacher in this school, to which she confirms. To make her comfortable, he offers her something to drink, and she requests green tea, surprised by her choice. He finds it mature for her age, as she eagerly drinks the tea. He asks if she wants him to take her to her grandfather. Agreeing, she stands up from the bench, ready to go. As they pass the class, the president crouches down and asks Mocha to not make a sound since he's bunking his class. They pass a building and Mocha asks him about it. He informs her that it's the gym building. She doesn't know what a gym is and asks him to explain. He tries to do it but gives a terrible explanation. Inside the gym, somebody tells Mizuki she has gained some weight. Then, they see Emery doing a back jump with a perfectly smooth landing. Later, they arrive at the staff room where Mr. Koyama appears. As soon as Mocha hears his name, she turns around and runs to hug him joyfully. He expresses both happiness and scolding, glad that she came but also upset that she left alone, causing her parents to worry. Mocha starts crying, and Mr. Koyama comforts her. Mocha proudly shows her sketchbook to her grandpa, who appreciates her work. She also shows it to the president, who admires it as well. Her grandpa mentions that it's great she enjoys art since he's an important member of the art club. Mocha hugs his legs, calling him uncle, but quickly runs back to hug her grandfather's leg, declaring him as more important. On the next day, the president shows Mizuki and Subaru a picture of Mocha and Mr. Koyama. Mizuki identifies her and quickly tells Subaru it's the same girl they rescued last November. The timeline moves back to the time when Subaru and Mizuki rescued Mocha. Later, Mizuki and Subaru are called on stage during assembly to be appreciated by everyone for the noble thing they did. Kaori asks Mizuki to hang out with her while they're walking in the hallway, but Mizuki apologizes, citing her need to complete her work for the upcoming art competition. She also mentions feeling embarrassed during the assembly ceremony. However, Kaori loudly draws attention to Mizuki, declaring to everyone around that she's the one who saved the little girl. Mizuki checks the club room only to find it in a mess. Subaru appears and smiles at her. She asks him why the room is messy, to which he reveals how he can't find the paint supplies. Mizuki starts scolding that he should have learned it by now. Just then, a girl from the newspaper club comes to interview Mizuki about the rescuing incident. Mizuki's homeroom teacher approaches her there and asks her to run for student council. Mizuki tries to reject, but he leaves, waving off her objections in the air. Subaru inquires about it as she can't seem to concentrate on her painting. She tells him all the rescue crap and how it is haunting her now. He urges her to say no straight and directly to his face so she can focus on the painting as the competition is coming up. Over the course of the next few days, Mizuki, being a coward, avoids the homeroom teacher. One day, Sayaka, the newspaper club girl, comes and hands over the copy of the article she wrote about the incident. Subaru reads it and gets shocked. He confirms from Sayaka that Mizuki really said those things. On the other hand, Mizuki is called to the guidance office over the speakerphone. She gets the hunch it's her homeroom teacher. She goes and tells him that she can't run for the student council. He pretends not to listen to her and says he already sent her profile forward. Since she seemed busy for the past few days, he didn't get that she was avoiding him. Subaru comes to her rescue and starts scolding her that she should focus on her painting instead of this crap. Mizuki, unable to say something, smiles at him thankfully. Turns out, Mizuki told Sayaka that it was all because of Subaru's quick thinking ability that they were able to rescue that girl. Miss Yumiko enters the club room while Subaru and Colette are arguing over a manga. They ask her to interfere, but she stays silent. After a while, they both notice the gloomy expression on her face. Upon inquiring, she shows them their test results, in which both failed badly. Mizuki joins in, asking Subaru if he's always had trouble with schoolwork. She adds that it's no surprise Colette struggles with tests. Miss Yumiko chimes in, confirming Mizuki's observation, which prompts a wheeze from Colette. Miss Yumiko then announces a ban on fun activities for the rest of the week, emphasizing that they'll be solely focused on studying. She warns them about a special exam designed just for them, leaving Subaru and Mizuki feeling uneasy as she leaves the room. Mizuki tells Subaru he deserves it for binging anime instead of studying and wishes him good luck sarcastically. Subaru says something about cram school, prompting Mizuki to stop dead in her tracks. The thought of not seeing Subaru after classes scares her to the bones, and she volunteers to tutor them. She tells it won't be a big deal as her parents won't be home, but eventually ends up over-explaining what she said. Over the weekend, the president wonders what he's doing there with them, to which Mizuki tells him it's because she can't keep herself composed. Colette calls Mizuki's house a small hut by the looks of it from the outside, while Subaru asks her what kind of palace she lives in. The president passes out as soon as possible, while Subaru and Colette let Mizuki know that they left their textbooks at school. Over the next few hours, she tutors them both till they're exhausted. Mizuki hesitates but ultimately agrees to let Subaru take a nap in her room. She tucks him into bed, and as he falls asleep, she decides to draw a bunny on his cheek. Chuckling to herself, Mizuki promises to wake him up in half an hour before leaving the room. She then tutors Colette as the alarm rings. She gets up to go wake Subaru, but Colette gives her a fishy sign look. She sits back down and asks Colette to go wake him up. After a while, Mizuki goes to check up on them and finds both of them passed out. Mizuki screams on the top of her lungs and they both wake up. This goes on until the weekend is over. Following the test, Miss Yumiko presents their results to Mr. Koyama, revealing that both Colette and Subaru performed exceptionally well. Kaori wants to bring Subaru and Mizuki together, so she decides to follow Emori to see if there's something between her and Subaru. However, her attempt at being sneaky fails miserably. She trips and falls, but Emori helps her up and tends to her wound. Emori then shares kind words about Mizuki, which changes Kaori's opinion of her. The next day, Sayaka asks Kaori what happened to her stalking Emori mission. Kaori tells them that like she told them before, she's a nice girl. Sayaka eyes her down, ignoring her stupidity. As the cultural festival gets closer, everyone at school is busy getting ready. Miss Yumiko and Mr. Koyama sit together, smiling as they watch the bustling excitement unfold. She questions Mr. Koyama about the art club activities and participation in the festival, to which Mr. Koyama gives a one-liner answer: nothing. He explains that typically, the art club is more focused on competitions than festivals. Usually, during this time of year, they work on class group projects and take part in the festival activities. Miss Yumiko feels disappointed by this and decides to take matters into her own hands. She resolves to showcase the art club's symbol at the cultural festival this year. In the club room, the members of the art club are busy preparing for their school's art exhibition. The president is passed out as usual. Mizuki is excitedly working on her piece, eager to display her artwork. Meanwhile, Subaru is more focused on drawing his beloved wafers. Subaru finishes his drink and puts the can aside when Miss Yumiko asks if she can have it. Mizuki then mentions that she heard a rumor about Miss Yumiko collecting empty cans like an obsessed lunatic. She says that Kaori saw her digging through the trash can looking for the cans yesterday. As they wonder about the reason, Miss Yumiko finds another one. Colette is standing over her when Mizuki and Subaru talk about whether tin cans can be sold. They think to themselves that maybe she's out of money. Upon hearing it, Colette proceeds to ask Miss Yumiko if she's poor or not. They clarify their question, and Miss Yumiko now understands their curiosity. She shares her idea for the festival, aiming to represent the art club with a unique project using tin cans. Mizuki eagerly offers her assistance, and gradually, the rest of the club agrees to participate. They begin gathering tin cans. And later that night, while lying on her bed, Mizuki sketches out some design ideas. The next morning, Mizuki shows off her design ideas in the club room. Emori passes by, says hello to Mizuki, and checks out the designs. She claps for Mizuki but then suggests that the idea needs something more. Mizuki agrees, feeling a bit envious when Subaru arrives and echoes Emori's comment. They share a synchronized moment, leaving Mizuki feeling a bit left out. Subaru then draws the rough blueprint and all of them start working on the cans. Emori volunteers to help too. During the first round, they are energetic, even the useless president. First of all, they start to remove the caps on the cans, then wash them properly. Colette complains about the cold water and the round they put the cans out to dry. The president remarks that he enjoys this part of the process since he's not directly involved. Mizuki suggests they start pulling the caps off the rest of the cans in the meantime. The president's expression shifts as he hears this. They repeat this whole process 30 times. The president gives up in round 2 and returns to his beloved sofa for a nap. Once they've cleaned all the cans, they begin working on the model. Puncturing holes in the cans and threading wires through to join them takes quite a while. Nearly a week passes by as they labor on the project. Eventually, they run out of stock while connecting the cans one day. Emori says she will get it, while Mizuki tells the puzzled Subaru that Miss Yumiko collected more for them to work with. As Emori is bringing a carton of cans, a teacher inquires about it. She tells him in a mysterious way that this box contains containers that were previously destined to fuel the fiery pits, but now they serve an important role in a war, leaving the teacher traumatized. Miss Yumiko enters the club room looking quite sullen. The art club members ask her what's wrong. Noticing her distressed expression, she informs them that the can stock they collected with great hardship got picked up by the garbage collectors. They took it all, leaving them with nothing. Miss Yumiko expresses regret, saying she should have made it clear before. The president mentions there are still some cans left in the storage room, but Subaru replies they won't be enough. Miss Yumiko is on the verge of tears when Colette goes and pats her head, trying to comfort her but ends up making her even more sad with her words. Mizuki steps in to scold Colette gently while they collectively comfort Miss Yumiko. They decide to buy the cans from outside, sacrificing their maiden school theme. The president encourages them not to give up so easily, suggesting that they could purchase cans from the sports club, which buys in bulk. Subaru acknowledges that it won't be enough, so he proposes selling the cans at a discounted price within the school. Everyone agrees with Subaru's idea, impressed by the unexpected cleverness from the president. They smile at the thought of how this idea came to the president's seemingly brainless mind. As they purchase the cans, Colette distributes flyers throughout the school to spread the word. They set up a stall in the front yard next to the entrance, attracting a large crowd of people. Mizuki handles the sales while Subaru collects the cans in an eco-friendly bin. Mizuki feels overwhelmed by the influx of customers, but Emori and Colette come to her rescue. Mizuki inquires about Miss Yumiko's whereabouts, remembering her distressful state earlier. Emori assures her that Miss Yumiko will join them shortly. As they all get busy selling the drinks, the boys go crazy over Emori and start competing with each other to buy the cans. After a while, Miss Yumiko appears wearing a panda costume, as it was the only thing that fit her. She cheers them on, adding to the festive atmosphere. Finally, they gather enough cans to complete their art piece, bringing a sense of relief to everyone. The following morning, with Colette on the president's shoulders, they finish adding the last pieces to the model. They all step back to admire it, seeing their idea become a reality. Some of them get teary-eyed, except for Colette, Subaru, and the president, who lack emotional intelligence. Miss Yumiko announces that they just need to take it to the gym now. Suddenly, the president realizes something and points it out to everyone. They're supposed to display it at the gym. The girls confirm this, and they all look up at the model, realizing the challenge ahead. The president suggests they start by taking it outside, and everyone screams at him in disbelief. One day at school, it starts pouring very heavily. Mizuki is walking down the hallway with notebooks in her hands when she sees Emori standing in front of the window. As she walks toward her, Emori is talking to herself about rain. She says if it had to rain, it should have started earlier in the morning before school started. Seeing Mizuki approaching, she quickly adjusts her expression to a smile. Mizuki greets her and asks if she's heading home, to which she confirms. She tries to come up with an excuse for the delay but couldn't and reveals she doesn't like rain. Mizuki bluntly asks she didn't bring her umbrella, to which Emori replies by shaking her head. Mizuki smiles and tells that she can take hers. Emori asks her what she will do later, but Mizuki informs her that she has class duty and her homeroom teacher asked to help him, so she is not going home just yet. She also adds that by the time she'll leave, the rain will stop. As Mizuki finishes her sentence, the boys walking nearby mention the rain forecast getting worse. Just then, Emori's phone buzzes. It's a text from Colette. Reading it aloud, Emori shares that Colette wants to walk home together. Mizuki wishes Emori luck and starts to leave. Ahead, she spots Colette approaching, wearing her raincoat. Mizuki compliments her coat, and Colette beams with happiness. Mizuki then tells her about Emori waiting, and Colette dashes off with a cheerful goodbye. Mizuki watches as Emori leaves before Subaru approaches and asks about her class duty. Confirming that she's indeed on duty, Mizuki nods. Subaru then offers to help with the textbooks she's carrying. Blushing slightly, Mizuki declines, insisting that she can handle it herself. As he begins to leave, Mizuki calls out to him, requesting an umbrella. She then adds that he should share it with Emori, who hadn't brought one. He agrees and heads off while Mizuki returns to her work. Later, Mizuki places the textbooks on the table in the staff room. Her homeroom teacher thanks her as she prepares to leave. He offers her a cup of warm coffee, but Mizuki politely declines, mentioning her cleaning duties. After completing her class duties, Mizuki packs her bag and takes a sigh as her phone rings. Kaori, being dramatic, spams her inbox, telling her useless stuff before dropping the bombshell. She's taking Mizuki's umbrella. Mizuki feels annoyed but doesn't argue further. She sighs in frustration and silently protests as she walks out of her classroom. She stands near the umbrella storage and looks out at the heavy rain pouring down. At that moment, Subaru comes out of the shadows and stands in front of her. She asks what he is doing here and why he hasn't gone home yet. Subaru reveals that by the time he got here, Emori was already out, standing in the rain. He asked her to come back inside as she would catch a cold like this, but she shrugged him off and walked away with Colette. He says that he saw her friend Kaori with her umbrella, so he thought that she borrowed it from her. That's why he stayed back to walk her home. Mizuki stares at him wide-eyed and thanks him. During the walk, Subaru gets Mizuki's attention and almost asks something, but then decides to change his mind and shake his head. The next morning, Mizuki is walking to school along with Kaori and others, but she is still thinking about what Subaru was going to ask. Sayaka snaps her back to the reality when she asks her a question. Mizuki waves off the question as it was about Subaru. Kaori flexes that she knows what is going on but can't tell them as it's a top secret. Sayaka burst her bubble by saying she knew Mizuki and Subaru shared an umbrella yesterday. Kaori asks her how she knew that, in shock. Sayaka replies that she should never underestimate the information sources of a newspaper club member. Sayaka asks Mizuki whether she told him about how she feels, but she shakes her head in denial. All of them are changing into gym clothes when Sayaka says that this is the only time she's going to get the chance to tell him how she feels about him. She adds that during third year most students quit the clubs as they get more busy with exams and school work. Moreover, things only work if both ends up in the same high school. Kaori asks Mizuki if she thinks Subaru might end up in the same high school as her. Mizuki pauses, considering the question. Mizuki says that she's okay with things the way they are for a while. She is walking down the hallway as she overhears Subaru talking to Emery outside. Subaru tells her that he thinks he has fallen for Uzami. Mizuki internally screams while Emery encourages him and asks what he likes about her. Subaru starts telling her all the things. He says the bunny thing she put up her hair is very adorable. The way she acts when she's angry is a big plus for him, and most importantly he likes how she flashes her underworld mistakenly. Mizuki hears all of it and is too stunned to react. Subaru says sorry to Emery that he asked her to come here to tell all this, but Emery says it's nothing. As Mizuki enters the club room, she finds it empty and hopes the president will arrive before Subaru. She sighs and places her bag on the sofa just as Subaru walks in, catching her off guard. Subaru wastes no time and gets straight to the point, telling Mizuki that he needs to share something very serious with her. Mizuki mentally prepares herself to stay calm and composed. Subaru then reveals that he's fallen in love and proceeds to show her a manga character. Mizuki is puzzled and unsure how to react. As Subaru explains that he likes her, Mizuki's confusion grows and she stutters in disbelief. Finally finding her voice, Mizuki mentions overhearing Subaru talking to Emery and repeats what she heard. Subaru then shows her images of the character engaging in those activities, highlighting the striking similarities. Mizuki protests, pointing out that Subaru clearly used her name. Subaru explains that this is precisely what he wanted to discuss with her. The character he likes in the manga has the same name as her, Uzami. He asks if it would be okay to call her something else to avoid any awkwardness, suggesting her first name, Mizuki. Feeling conflicted, Mizuki doesn't know how to respond. Subaru gives her some space to think and leaves. Suddenly, the president emerges from behind the sofa, startling Mizuki. She asks him how long he's been there, and he casually responds since the beginning. Mizuki shoots him a glare. The president congratulates her on potentially moving to a first-name basis with Subaru. He then hints at the possibility of not being around next year, leaving Mizuki pondering over his words on her way home. Throughout dinner, she's visibly distracted and distant. Her mother notices and asks if she's okay. Mizuki assures her she's fine, finishes her meal, and retreats to her room. As she lies on her bed, Mizuki's phone buzzes with texts from her friends in the group chat. The next morning, as Mizuki gets ready for school and heads out, she spots Subaru and rushes over to him. There, she promptly informs him that his request to call her Mizuki is denied. She insists that she won't allow him to use her first name like that. Subaru, unfazed, assures her that it's not a problem because she'll always be Uzami to him. Mizuki, feeling puzzled, asks for an explanation. Subaru reveals that he's no longer interested in that other girl. When Mizuki questions why, Subaru explains that he found out she has a boyfriend from the latest anime episode. Giving Subaru a knowing look, Mizuki remarks with an "I told you so" expression. Ignoring her implication, Subaru declares that he'll create his own waifus from now on, maybe even one in a school uniform. He then asks Mizuki to model for him, to which she agrees with a smile. With things back to normal between them, they walk off together towards school. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.